Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today we're going to talk about a famous museum that now has a new branch down south. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Of course, there's a museum up here in Taipei that everyone knows about, the National Palace Museum. And now they have a branch down in Chiayi, so it's easier for the good people of the center and south to enjoy these national treasures as well.
So when I read Southern Branch, I automatically thought it was going to be in Kaohsiung,
Yeah.
But Chiayi is down south, so we're going to give some credit to little Chiayi, which I have been to visit in the past. It's kind of fun. But I have not yet been to the new Southern Branch of the NPM, or National Palace Museum. I'm excited to go see it, especially after reading about what the park looks like. It sounds really beautiful. That's the part I really want to see. Well, before we start, guys, we're going to read through today's article and then we'll be back to discuss it. A decade ago, those eager to admire centuries-old artifacts in Taiwan had primarily one destination: the National Palace Museum in Taipei. Today, the cultural landscape has evolved, with the southern branch of the National Palace Museum presenting a compelling alternative. Strategically located in Chiayi County, the museum park is more than just a cultural center. It's a significant part of a campaign to balance regional development in Taiwan. Its establishment has made invaluable historical artifacts accessible to a broader audience outside northern Taiwan, promoting the even distribution of cultural resources. By attracting tourists from all over, this initiative also boosts local economic growth. To offer visitors rich cultural experiences, the architecture of the museum has a unique beauty. The main building merges contemporary design with traditional Asian elements, presenting a streamlined appearance. The inspiration comes from brush strokes used in Chinese ink painting. A curved path from the building leads to Zhimei Bridge, which elegantly arches over an artificial lake in the south. The bridge doesn't have a pier, giving the illusion of floating above the surface of the water when viewed from a distance. Inside the museum, a rich cultural heritage awaits visitors. Permanent exhibitions display precious national treasures such as the jadeite cabbage, alongside various collections. As for limited-time exhibitions, the museum will host one on the Ryukyu Kingdom starting from this September, with some artifacts on loan from museums in Japan. This exhibition will shed light on the kingdom's critical role in trade via sea routes and cultural exchanges between nations throughout history. Additionally, in support of cultural diversity, the museum is the first of its kind in Taiwan to include a Muslim prayer room, offering a comprehensive perspective on Asian art and history. The museum invites visitors to explore the multiple narratives that have shaped our world. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about Taiwan today, and we're going to focus in on a new museum that's located down in Chiayi in the southern part of Taiwan. And as you know, in museums, we store some of our most precious treasures from the past. Usually they're historical treasures from our culture, but we also have museums that feature more scientific articles as well. So we have lots of things from the past. It doesn't have to be a painting or a costume, for example. It can be something in the scientific field.
It certainly can. And of course, we're talking about getting a history lesson in the southern branch of the National Palace Museum, or Gugong, as it's referred to up here in the north and in the south as well.
Yeah.
And you're getting a history lesson here. It's the southern branch of this particular museum. And a decade ago, which would be 10 years ago, those eager to admire centuries-old artifacts in Taiwan had primarily one destination, the National Palace Museum in Taipei. Okay, so of course, 10 years ago, if you wanted to admire these artifacts, Well, you had to go up north to the Gugong at the National Palace Museum in Taipei. An artifact, of course, is something that has been brought from the past. It can be any kind of object made by a human being. It could be gold and silver. It could be jewelry. It could be pottery. It could be paintings or whatever, statues. And so we're talking about these really old artifacts from ancient China. Remember, the original Gugong came over to Taiwan in the middle of the 19th century, or the 20th century, rather, excuse me. And, of course, they were kept at the National Palace Museum in Shilin in Taipei. And yes, indeed, if you wanted to admire those artifacts, like those ancient landscape paintings or those Ming vases or whatever, you had to go all the way up to Taipei if you lived, say, in Taichung, Jiayi, Jianghua, Tainan, Kaohsiung, Pingdong, all those good places.
You mentioned a really important word that oddly has two different pronunciations, and that's a vase or vase. And we usually just take these beautiful vases or vases and we put flowers in them. They're beautiful. So, yeah, there's some beautiful pieces in any museum here in Taiwan, I have to say. I've been to quite a few of them. I love museums. We're using landscape in a different way here in the second sentence. It says, today the cultural landscape has evolved. We're not really talking about the land or, what a mountain area looks like or a meadow. Here we're talking about just that area of culture itself. It's changed, it's evolved. To evolve means to change slowly over time. And it's changed because we now have a southern branch of the NPM, and it's presenting a compelling alternative. If something's compelling, it gets you really interested. It attracts your attention. It's hard to look away if something's very compelling. It's been a long time since I saw a very compelling film. Usually they're pretty boring these days, but something that really grabs your attention and you don't want to look away is compelling. So it is a different choice for you. So if you've been to the Gugong in Taipei and you think you've seen it all, maybe it's time to go down south.
Yeah, and plus it might be of interest to people up from the north, because it's an interesting museum itself. The building is made in interesting architecture, so it could be attractive to anybody for that matter. And, of course, as you know, Jiayi is easily accessible by high-speed rail, so think about that. Now, here in the next paragraph, it says, strategically located in Jiayi County, the museum park is more than just a cultural center. So we're saying it's located in Jiayi County, not Jiayi City, but Jiayi County. That's the larger area of Jiayi down there. And it's strategically located. If something's strategic, it has to do with strategy or planning. In this particular case, it just means it's conveniently located for all the people who live down south. So if you live in Taichung, Jianghua, Pingdong, or wherever, it's much easier to get to this museum in Jiayi than it is to get to the museum in Taipei.
Right. They probably spent a lot of time deciding where to build this, what area of land would be the best. So that's part of a strategy that a group of planners would have. So it's strategically located there, and it's more than just a cultural center. What does it include? Well, it's a significant or important part of a campaign to balance regional development in Taiwan. I've done a lot of videos introducing different science parks in Taiwan, and it does seem like Taiwan is always very busy in developing different areas around the island, not just the north, not just Taipei. They're developing areas all around the nation to make it convenient to build new science parks and new areas for visitors and people wanting to start new businesses in Taiwan. We welcome that. We love new businesses. So if you have a campaign, it could be because you're trying to elect someone to government. You could have an ad campaign where you're trying to publicize a particular product a company makes. Here, it's sort of lots of different policies and things that you do in order to accomplish something. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to really balance out all of the development that's taking place in Taiwan around the island. There's a lot of building going on everywhere. but we want to make sure lots of different regions have that sort of opportunity for success.
Right. It's an attraction for people in the center and south. And of course, if it attracts people there, it could also attract businesses and factories or whatever as well. So yes, indeed, its establishment has made invaluable historical artifacts accessible to a broader audience outside northern Taiwan, promoting the even distribution of cultural resources. Now, if something's invaluable, well, it's very, very valuable. In fact, it doesn't have a price on it. So these are historical artifacts that don't have a price on them because they are so valuable that they just don't have a price. They're priceless. And of course, we want people in the center and south and visitors as well to have access to these artifacts and to this museum as well. And yes, indeed, we want to promote the even distribution of cultural resources. This could be a problem in places like Taiwan or Thailand or even Japan, where they have what is called a primate city. Like Taipei is the biggest city in Taiwan, and Thailand, of course, is Bangkok. And all the cultural artifacts and the cultural resources tend to cluster in those cities. So people who live outside those cities have to travel all the way to that main city to get access to those things. So this is a move in the positive direction here to distribute those cultural resources to other parts of the country. So the verb is to distribute, which means to spread the location of various things. And then distribution is the noun. It could also be an adjective if you're talking about, say, distribution centers, where you get all these products put in one particular place and then the trucks deliver them to local locations.
Yeah, I know that's how Amazon works. They have these large buildings in different regions, and they'll just store things in those regions. And then when they need them, they're closer to where they're being ordered from. So that helps. So remember, we don't say, how do they say distribute? Distribute. The accent is on that second syllable, distribute for the noun, or for the verb, and distribution for the noun. So it's kind of tricky. I know I hear some weird pronunciations of distribute in Taiwan. Yeah, you can talk about the distribution of things when you're just delivering items, right? But here, they're actually talking about making sure that each area has their fair share of these cultural resources. So by attracting tourists from all over, and we always want more tourism here in Taiwan, this initiative or this idea that they're working on also boosts or helps the local community grow, the local economic growth in the area. These are all good things. Right now, guys, we're going to take a few minutes, listen to our Chinese teacher talk about this, and then we'll be back to continue.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是9月9号 Unit 5, A History Lesson in the Southern Branch of the National Palace Museum. 这个单元是文艺选填的练习题，内容和故宫南院有关。大家如果有外国友人到台湾旅游，应该都会想带他们到处逛逛吧。大家心中的观光景点口袋名单有哪些地方呢？如果亲友喜欢观赏文物，那一定不要错过故宫博物院。不过，除了大家熟悉的外双溪总馆，其实也可以带亲友搭乘高铁到嘉义走走哦。好，那我们现在先一起解题吧。文章第一段提到，随着文化界物换星移，故宫南院俨然成为另一个吸引人的替代方案。紧接着第二段开头提到故宫南院地理位置的选择有策略意义，不只是设立一个文化中心。接着是第一题的题干 ，balance 平衡是及物动词，后面要有名词当受词，而 development 就是 balance 的受词，前面的空格只能放修饰它的形容词。这里考量前后文选择 E regional 区域的。表示故宫南院是平衡台湾国内区域发展重要的一环，因此第一题正确答案应该选 E。接着请看第二题，空格前面是第三人称单数代名词 its， 照理说后面要有名词，而后面现在完成是 has made， 更加确定空格就是句子主词的位置， 必须要是单数名词。考量前后文，所有个 its 加上 I 的 establishment， 表示设立南院，让北台湾以外更广大民众得以就近欣赏无价的历史文物，同时促进文化资源平衡分配。因此第二题答案选 I。 紧接着请看第三题，空格在主词 this initiative 这项文化建设之后，所以空格应该是及物动词。我们从前后文筛选，第三题正确答案是 J boost 提升，表示这项文化建设也提升了地方经济成长。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's continue our lesson. We're talking about the southern branch of the National Palace Museum, and of course, it's located in Jiayi County, down in southern Taiwan. Now, to offer visitors rich cultural experiences, the architecture of the museum has a unique beauty. Now, of course, we've got a really beautiful building up here in the north, in Shilin there. It's a nice kind of traditional building for the National Palace Museum. But now they have a unique kind of building for the museum in the south. It's kind of a modern design. It has unique, special beauty, and you ought to check it out. It's quite amazing.
Now, the main building merges or combines contemporary design with traditional Asian elements, presenting a streamlined appearance. If something's streamlined, just means all the extra stuff is taken away. So it's a very smooth move from one thing to another. Sometimes your business will have a streamlined procedural manual or something where there's a procedure and maybe it had 20 steps before, and then after it's streamlined, it has 5. And it just goes really fast and you don't waste time or energy. This is a streamlined appearance, meaning it looks very sleek. There's no wasted space. They've done a really good job merging contemporary with traditional Asian elements or Asian ideas and the flavor of Asian architecture.
Indeed. So it's very streamlined, very efficient looking. And the inspiration comes from brush strokes used in Chinese ink painting, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, having studied calligraphy in school. And of course, calligraphy can also be applied to Chinese ink painting. And of course, you are familiar with those brush strokes. You use the brush and you stroke lines on the paper to make bamboo or Chinese characters or whatever. So yes, the museum is inspired by those brush strokes. So here we've got the word inspiration. That's the noun form. The verb is to inspire. That means you kind of get some idea from some particular place, okay? You may have traveled to Madrid or Paris or Berlin, and you got some inspiration to be a writer or a painter or something like that. You went to the museums there and you were inspired. So again, the verb is to inspire and the noun is inspiration. Hopefully, this kind of museum may give you some inspiration to learn some more about art and history and things like that.
Right. I think museums can be really inspirational, actually. So I'm not surprised about this. So that's where their inspiration came from, these brush strokes used in Chinese ink painting. There's a curved path. If it's curved, it's not straight. It's kind of circular. And it goes from the building. And it leads to Zhimei Bridge. And they're describing the bridge as elegantly arching over an artificial lake in the south. So if you're elegant, you're very beautiful, you're graceful, you move well. We often describe dancers and women, typically, not so much men. But sometimes a man can be elegant. But someone who's really refined and dignified, they have good taste, but they move well. The form is beautiful. So this elegantly arches over a lake that is man-made or built by human beings. So it's artificial. It's not real. To arch is being used here as a verb, and it just means to go over the top of something. But it's in a shape that looks like half a dome. So arch, it arches over something. We always talk about the McDonald arches, you know, the yellow M on top of McDonald's. I hate to even talk about that awful fast food place, but that's an arch. And we use it as a verb to talk about something that bends over something else, to arch. So it arches over this lake in the south.
Right. Here, arch again is being used as a verb, but I think it's most often seen as a noun.
Yeah.
Like the Arches in Utah. There's a national park there called Arches National Park. You ought to go check it out. But yes, indeed, this bridge arches in an arch over this lake in the south and the part of the museum. And the bridge doesn't have a pier, giving the illusion of floating above the surface of the water when viewed from a distance. So it probably looks like something floating above the lake.
Sounds cool, huh?
If you see it from far away.
Yeah.
The word pier here can have a couple of different meanings. It could be like a dock where boats can tie up when they sail to shore and they want the people to get off the boat. They tie up to a pier. But when you talk about building bridges, the part in the middle of the bridge that holds the bridge up, those are oftentimes referred to as the pier. So this bridge doesn't really have a pillar or a support or a pier, and so therefore it looks like an arch floating above the surface of the water if you see it from far away.
Oh, I didn't know that those support columns were called piers. So I learned something today. So that's why it looks like it's floating above the surface of the water. Yeah, you probably look at it and you think, what's holding it up? What's keeping it up there? That's kind of crazy. So inside the museum, you've got a rich cultural heritage that's awaiting visitors. So there's a lot to see inside. Permanent exhibitions display precious national treasures. And here's probably one of the most famous here in Taiwan, and that's the jadeite cabbage, a piece of jade that looks like a real piece of cabbage. I remember the first time I saw it and I thought, oh, come on. Someone carved that. That doesn't look natural. But it is. It's natural. They found it that way. In museums, they have exhibitions. So some are permanent and they're always there. They're so important they never leave, like the Mona Lisa never leaves the Louvre. But they'll also have these short-term or, these semi-permanent. They have these exhibitions that aren't there very long. They keep trading them in and out, and they'll also trade with museums around the world. So that's why you want to go and visit the museum quite often, because they keep changing the exhibitions. So here's a limited time exhibition. They're going to be hosting one on the Ryukyu. How do you say this again, Tom?
I'm guessing Ryukyu.
Ryukyu.
I only have a basic understanding of Japanese.
Oh, I'm terrible at Japanese.
But it's a historical period of time in Japan, and they've got some artifacts that were produced during the Ryukyu Kingdom. And so they're having this exhibition featuring the Ryukyu Kingdom, which is starting from this September, and it will last for a while after that. And it will have some artifacts on loan from museums in Japan. So if something's on loan, they give it to you for a temporary period of time. I don't think they want any money for it. There may be some expenses in terms of transportation or whatever.
There's a lot of money in insurance to cover this stuff. So it costs the museum a lot to borrow it, but you're not paying for it, no.
Right, but they're letting the museum in Taipei have these artifacts so people can see these things. So check it out. It's a special exhibition. And yes, these museums have the regular collection that you can see pretty much all the time. But then, of course, they also have special exhibitions. And this is a special exhibition. And again, those artifacts are on loan from various museums in Japan. Now, this exhibition will shed light on the kingdom's critical role in trade via sea routes and cultural exchanges between nations throughout history. So, yes, indeed, we've heard about the Ryukyu Kingdom before, but maybe we don't know much about it. So if you see these artifacts, it might fire your imagination. It will probably inspire you to learn more about this period of history. You'll see these artifacts and you'll be able to imagine what life was like during that time and what kind of influence this particular kingdom had on Asia and Japan itself.
Cool. So additionally, in support of cultural diversity or diversity, we usually say diversity in the U.S., The museum is the first of its kind in Taiwan to include a Muslim prayer room. The Muslims will pull out a prayer rug and say prayers, I think 3 times, at least 3 times a day.
I don't know. I'm not a Muslim. I don't know. But
so that's included. And then, moving on to the very end, they're going to offer a comprehensive perspective on Asian art and history. Just by going to the museum, you'll get that complete perspective, which is what comprehensive means. The museum invites visitors to explore the multiple narratives. A narrative is just a story that have shaped our world. So it sounds fascinating.
Sounds like a great day trip for people who live down south, or even an overnight trip from people or for people from Taipei. I certainly would like to check it out as well. Though it takes about, 5 or 6 hours to drive down there from Taipei. Much faster by Gaotie, a high-speed rail. So yeah, check it out. And we're proud to have introduced this museum to all of you. And hopefully you'll be inspired to check it out yourself. Okay, we're at the end of our time for explaining things. Let's turn things over now to our Chinese teacher.
接着请看第4题，前一句提到为了提供丰富的文化体验，博物馆的建筑独具美感。而第4题题干本身，逗点之前是主要子句，逗点以后从 presenting 开始是分词构句。主要子句主词 the main building 之后并没有主要动词，空格应该从选项里找出动词填入，用上下文文意筛选选项。所以第4题答案选 A merges 合并或结合，表示主建筑融合现代设计和传统亚洲元素，呈现出流线型的外观。紧接着是第5题，那我们看第5题的题干。好，这里呢表示这栋建筑的设计灵感来自于点点点 comes from 后面应该有名词当受词。第5题空格应该填入名词，而空格后的 used in Chinese ink painting 运用在中国水墨画当中，则是在修饰空格里面的名词，适合跟 brush 毛笔搭配的选项。那我们选 G stroke 笔画。整句话的意思是这栋建筑的设计灵感来自于中国水墨画的笔触。再来我们看第6题，前面说主建筑有条曲径通往到这个至美桥，桥身优雅横跨南边的人工湖。接着是题干，桥梁没有桥墩，后面是分词构句 giving the 什么，the 是定冠词，后面要加名词。考量前后文文意，第6题应该选 B illusion 错觉，表示桥梁没有桥墩，从远方看会有种错觉，以为桥就浮在水面上。紧接着请看第7题，前一句博物馆内有丰富的文化遗产等待游客探索。接着是题干。好，主词 exhibitions 展览前面需要形容词修饰，从选项里用前后文文意筛选，所以第7题答案选 H permanent 永久的，表示常设展览展示像翠玉白菜这些珍贵的国宝，还有各类馆藏。接着请看第8题，前文提到至于特展，南院今年9月预计举办琉球王国展览，部分展品会从日本博物馆借展。接着是题干，从 this exhibition 开始，本次展览将呈现历史上琉球王国所扮演的关键角色，有2个方面，一个是海上贸易航线位置重要，另一个是和国家间的文化空格。句子比较复杂，大家不要看到眼花了，我们可以简化成 its critical role in trade and cultural 空格。所以要从选项当中找名词，再用前后文文意确认。所以第8题答案选 F exchanges 交流，表示展览会让参观的游客清楚看到琉球王国在历史上扮演的重要角色，不论是海上贸易还是国际文化交流。紧接着请看第9题 in support of 空格，后面要加上名词， cultural 只是形容词， 所以还要从选项里找出名词来，可以用 cultural 来修饰。因此第9题答案选 C， diversity 多元多样化。好，那紧接着第10题 offering a competitive， 抱歉 offering a comprehensive， 这边 offer 提供是及物动词，后面应该有名词当受词，在此只剩下 D perspective 观点视角这个选项。第10题的答案选 D， 表示故宫南院提供亚洲艺术和历史全方位的视角，邀请游客探索形塑世界的众多故事。好，以上就是我们对于这篇文意选填所做的解题中文讲解。谢谢大家。
That's it, guys. Thanks for joining us. We hope you all get a chance to go down to Chiayi County and check out the new museum there. It sounds really lovely. And if you have some extra time, we encourage you to go to YouTube, check out our page, and learn some more English. You'll really enjoy yourselves. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.